Dawn, May 27, 2015. The Bois au Lac, a 5-star hotel in Zurich where a suite runs thousands of dollars a night. Swiss police walk through the lobby, no sirens. They come out minutes later escorting 7 of the most powerful men in world football, some shielded from the cameras behind the hotel's own bedsheets. Across the Atlantic, the United States Department of Justice unseals a 164-page indictment. Racketeering, wire fraud, money laundering, 24 years of it. Here's the strange part. These men didn't run an oil company or a bank. They ran football tournaments for a Swiss non-profit. So today, with the 2026 World Cup filling stadiums right now, on track to be the richest sporting event ever staged, a simple question. How does a non-profit end up with FBI agents and $13 billion? Follow the money. Start with what this tournament actually earns. For the 4-year cycle ending with this World Cup, FIFA projects $13 billion in revenue, nearly $9 billion from the 2026 tournament alone. It's the biggest payday in the history of organized sport. Broadcasting rights, over $4 billion. Sponsorship, close to $4 billion, the highest ever collected for a single sporting event. And ticketing and hospitality, roughly triple the last World Cup, approaching $3 billion, helped by a new invention FIFA borrowed from the airlines. Dynamic pricing. The algorithm raises the price while you hesitate. Now who earns this? Legally, a non-profit association registered in Zurich. FIFA has no shareholders. It pays no dividends. On paper, it exists to develop the game. And to be fair, it does redistribute billions to football federations around the world. Remember that detail. It matters later because that redistribution system is exactly where the FBI ended up looking. It wasn't always a money machine. For most of a century, the World Cup was a football tournament that roughly broke even. The transformation began in the 1970s when a Brazilian official named João Havelange won the FIFA presidency with a simple insight. The tournament wasn't a sporting event that happened to be televised. It was television content with a 100-year-old brand. He teamed up with the founder of Adidas, carved the World Cup into packages, broadcast rights, sponsor categories, marketing rights, and sold them to the highest bidder through a partner agency created for the purpose. Within 2 decades, a break-even sports body had become one of the richest organizations on Earth that officially earns nothing for anyone. One more detail for later, that marketing agency, ISL, collapsed in 2001, and Swiss proceedings eventually revealed it had been paying tens of millions in kickbacks to senior football officials for the very rights it was buying. Keep that in mind. The pattern didn't start in 2015. It was present at the creation. But here's the number that should stop you. FIFA's costs for putting on the biggest event on Earth are a fraction of what any host country spends. Because FIFA doesn't build the stadiums. It doesn't pay the police. It doesn't fix the roads or run the trains. Someone else does. Think of the World Cup as a franchise, like a fast food chain. Normally, a franchisee pays fees but keeps their restaurant's profits. FIFA improved the model. The franchisee pays for everything, and FIFA keeps the receipts. Look at 2026, happening right now across the US, Canada, and Mexico. FIFA controls essentially every revenue stream: media, sponsors, tickets, hospitality, merchandise. The host cities control something too: the costs. Each of the 11 US host cities is on the hook for roughly $100 to $200 million in security, transport, and logistics. Washington awarded $625 million in federal security funding on top. Journalists tallying the ledgers estimate the American host cities are heading for a collective shortfall north of $250 million. And the taxes? This is the elegant part. Full tax exemption for FIFA isn't a loophole it found, it's a condition it demands in the bid contract. Host governments sign away income tax on the broadcast and commercial billions earned on their own soil. It goes further, ticket sales exempted from sales tax city by city. Florida expects to give up around $7 million in sales tax for Miami's matches, Georgia up to $25 million for Atlanta's. The world's most profitable sporting event held partly in America, contributing almost nothing to the American treasury, by signed agreement. Why would any city agree? 2 words: economic impact. Every host is handed a glossy study projecting billions in tourism and jobs. And for decades, independent economists have rerun those numbers afterwards and found the same thing. The promised boom rarely shows up. Regular tourists stay away, residents leave town, and the impact mostly moves existing spending around. But the auction doesn't care, because dozens of countries bid, and the winner is, almost by definition, the one that promised the most. Economists have a name for this: the winner's curse. Although, here's a telling wrinkle: the auction is quietly running out of bidders. Democracies have grown allergic. City after city has watched referendums reject Olympic and World Cup bids once voters actually saw the contract. The hosts, still eager to pay any price, are increasingly states where no one gets to vote on it. Russia in 2018, Qatar in 2022. And in December 2024, FIFA awarded the 2034 World Cup to Saudi Arabia, the only bidder confirmed by acclamation, no rival, no vote that mattered. When a franchise's terms get bad enough that only certain kinds of buyers remain, the terms are the story. And if you want to see the winner's curse taken to its absolute limit, look at 2022. Qatar spent an estimated $220 billion preparing for its World Cup. Stadiums, a metro, an entire city district. FIFA's revenue from that tournament? $7.5 billion. For every dollar FIFA earned, the host spent roughly 30. And the bill wasn't only financial. That construction boom ran on migrant labor under conditions that human rights organizations spent a decade documenting, including thousands of worker deaths reported in the years after the award, and recruitment fees that workers themselves paid for the privilege of building it. FIFA's own commissioned report later acknowledged the tournament's human cost. The franchise model doesn't just export the financial bill, it exports every bill. So billions flow in, tax-free, to a non-profit with no shareholders. And billions flow back out as development payments and marketing contracts across 100+ countries, with the oversight of itself. What could go wrong? On that May morning in Zurich, the Department of Justice answered precisely. The indictment charged 14 men, 9 FIFA officials, 5 sports marketing executives, with running what prosecutors described as a 24-year scheme. Over $150 million in bribes and kickbacks, paid for the media and marketing rights to tournaments. Not petty theft, the sale of the machine's own plumbing. A second wave that December indicted 16 more. The outcome is court record, not rumor, 27 guilty pleas. Trial convictions for racketeering conspiracy. And the US government has since returned hundreds of millions of dollars, including a single $92 million distribution, to the victim in the case. The victim formally is FIFA itself. The men convicted were the ones running it. 2 careful footnotes, because precision matters on this channel. Sepp Blatter, the president through that entire era, was never charged by the DOJ. He was later banned by FIFA's own ethics committee and separately acquitted twice by Swiss courts. And the men arrested were entitled to, and many exercised, their day in court. So, is this the biggest corruption case in history? Measured in bribe dollars, honestly no. Other scandals moved billions. But measure it differently, by how completely an institution was captured, for how long, across how many countries in the world's most watched sport, run by officials who were literally shielded by bedsheets from cameras. And you can argue there's never been anything quite so total. I'll let you make that call. Here's the deeper point. The corruption wasn't a malfunction of the machine. It was the machine's design working as built. Enormous revenue, zero external oversight, and other people's money at every layer. And if you think 2015 closed the case, a postscript from this tournament. In May 2026, 10 years almost to the day after those Zurich arrests, the Attorneys General of New York and New Jersey publicly demanded answers from FIFA about ticket allocations and its new dynamic pricing. Fans watching prices climb in real time while they sat in the queue. Different decade, different mechanism, same underlying question. Who does the machine actually serve? The scrutiny never really ended. It just changed departments. Strip away the football, and the World Cup teaches one transferable lesson: the franchise test. 3 questions for any deal, anywhere. Who pays the costs? Who keeps the receipts? And who wrote the contract? When the same party keeps the receipts and writes the contract, The costs will always find their way to someone else. It's true of stadium subsidies, Olympic bids, casino districts, and every economic impact study ever slid across a city council's desk. The pitch always sounds like investment. The structure is always the tell. FIFA didn't break the rules of business, it perfected them. A product billions of people love, produced at other people's expense, governed by referees, it appoints itself. The football is real, the joy is real. Just know when the trophy is lifted this month, the confetti falls on the hosts, the check clears in Zurich. That's the machine behind the world's biggest game. Next week, a company that owned half the phones on Earth and lost all of it in 5 years. Nokia is next.